Welcome to No Apologies. I'm Dana Lash. So of all of the people Jesus had disdain for, it was hypocrites. And there was a particular group of hypocrites who lived in Jesus's day, zealots, who loved religious laws and loved rules because they could exploit them for power. And of course, they were not subject to those rules and laws, but instead placed these burdens they wouldn't dare carry themselves, on everyone else. And of course, that group was called the Pharisees, and their pious religiousness, it was all for show. It was for everybody else to see, because the Pharisees didn't actually care about other people as God commanded. They simply used religion to gain power over other people. Well, today we have a new group of Pharisees that are just as fake and just as hypocritical. It's the Democrat Party with the Marxist core, and they have a new religion which they wield to gain power over others. It's called wokism. Wokism is a performative religion in which Democrats call other people racist, people they've never met, which then allows them to be unrepentant racists themselves. So how does this work exactly? Well, first of all, for this hypocritical scam to work, you must be a Democrat. And secondly, you have to espouse all of the latest woke tenets about race coming from that party, the Democrat Party. Stuff like America is a white supremacist nation and that teaching critical race theory to 5-year-olds instead of arithmetic is a good idea. And finally, you have to advocate for terrible ideas like reparations, like Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse. In fact, Democrat sitting Senator Sheldon Whitehouse so believes in reparations, he even introduced a bill to study the idea called US 40, Senate Bill 40. Now see, Sheldon Whitehouse is a modern day Pharisee because he wants you, the American taxpayer, probably whose family may not even have been in the United States at the time of slavery, who never participated in slavery yourself, to pay reparations to other individuals who were never actually themselves enslaved. So how this actually works, Sheldon Whitehouse he's never explained it. So would a white person living below the poverty line say, I don't know, maybe in a tent in Venice Beach, or who knows where, maybe in a shack in Kentucky, would they have to pay reparations? And well, how would that break down? Like, what if they were not even all here in the United States at the time that slavery occurred? Like, what if they immigrated over after? Like, would whatever percentage of their heritage actually be responsible for that percent? I mean, how does that work? And would one of the 35,000 black millionaires in America receive reparations also? Does Sheldon Whitehouse really think that this is a good idea? That this would promote racial unity or just unity in general? How would reparations for someone like former President Barack Obama work? I mean, Barack Obama himself, he came from a white mother and a black father. So does that mean that he owes how does any of this work? What about other ethnicities like the Chinese immigrants who built many of our railroads? Will they get reparations? I mean, a first grader knows that this is a recipe for more racial discord in America, so surely Sheldon Whitehouse can't be sincere. Of course, though, Senator Whitehouse isn't sincere because he's busy scoring political points with race. He's busy performing his woke religion for everyone else to see. And by doing this, it allows Senator Sheldon Whitehouse to do things like be a part of an all-white beach club in Rhode Island. Yeah, he is. Take a listen to his answer when he's asked about this by a local reporter.
Back in 2017, you had expressed concerns about the membership of the all-white Bailey's Beach Club, said that you hoped it would become more diverse. Now, your family's been members, your wife is one of the largest shareholders. Has there been any traction in that? Are there any minority members of the club now?
I think the people who are running the place are still working on that, and I'm sorry it hasn't happened yet. Your
thoughts on an elite, all-white, wealthy club, again, in this day and age? Should these clubs continue to exist?
It's a long tradition in Rhode Island, and there are many of them, and I think we just need to work our way through the issues. Thank you.
It's a long tradition. This is why I say that Democrats are modern-day Pharisees, because they tell you to defund the police, but they don't live in your neighborhoods, and they've got armed guards, and they want to raise your taxes while they vote to give themselves pay raises. They tell you that you're a racist simply for being white while they go to clubs where there are only white people. And they tell you to go green while they spew carbon out of the back of their private jets. They tell you to clean up your life while they hypocritically live however they want to, like Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. And the best part, if you're a Democrat like Whitehouse is, no one holds you to account, certainly not the corrupt media. So for example, if you're a Democrat and your father is the president, you can say Apparently, you can say a racial slur, the N-word, in a text to your attorney and drop that word like it's a preposition, and it's no problem, like Hunter Biden did. If you're a Democrat and you're the president, you can tell Black Americans that they, quote unquote, ain't black if they don't vote for you, like Joe Biden did. The Democrat president can even say condescending things like this to minorities. Listen.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
That's the beauty of being a modern day Pharisee called a Democrat. Now, let's say that you aren't a racist. Maybe you're not a member of America's historically racist party, the Democrat Party, and you don't espouse neo-racist ideas like critical race theory, segregation, and lies like the 1619 Project, which rewrites history like the Democrat Party does. That would make you an independent or, heaven forbid, a Republican. For you, one mistake, one accusation, an accusation is all it takes. It means the end of your career. Just ask Chris Harrison of The Bachelor, or ask actress Ellie Kemper. We talked about her a couple weeks ago. Or watch NFL quarterback Drew Brees grovel apologizing 4 times for saying that he loves the American flag, which somehow was racist. Look their stories up, and then think about Democrat Pharisee Sheldon Whitehouse sipping a pina colada at his all-white beach club, like Thurston Howell III, when he tells you that you owe reparations because you have white skin. He says, I wonder if he thought of this bill idea when he was at his all-white club. Or look at what's happening to even moderate Democrats, like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. See, because they oppose ending the filibuster, they recognize that the filibuster is actually a tool that our Constitution allows that would give Democrats one-party mob rule over America, and it would completely disenfranchise half of America and the minority party in D.C. also. So you're starting to hear a lot of these other Democrats suggest that maybe Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are racist. Now, what racist thing has Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema, what have either of them ever done? Oh, that's easy. They disagreed with the Democrat Party on ending the filibuster. And if you haven't yet noticed, disagreeing with the Democrat Party today on any issue means that you are a racist. But again, if you're willing to bow down to wokism and you agree with every last crazy idea that the Democrat Party says about race, you can keep that all-white beach club membership like Sheldon Whitehouse. And it's not like Sheldon Whitehouse hasn't had time to change his white bread ways. And by the way, did you note that question how his wife was a shareholder, majority shareholder? So he's not just a member, he's also apparently an owner. This is Sheldon Whitehouse, who was asked about his all-white Bailey Beach Club membership. This is back in 2017. Listen.
We are looking to get comment from you, being a member of one of the most exclusive organizations here in Newport.
I don't have one.
Why don't you have comment? Did you not step down from the club back in 2006 when you were running for Senate, knowing that it could present an issue?
I don't recall when we consolidated the membership.
Do you think there's an issue belonging to an all-exclusive organization trying to be one of the most progressive members of the Senate?
I think it's would be nice if the membership changed a little bit, but it's not my position to do.
Will you pressure them to do so?
I'll take that up privately.
Okay, do you have any other comments on the matter, Senator?
I don't.
He's literally a majority shareholder, him and his wife. How would you not have the ability to pressure anyone else there making decisions at the BBC or the Bailey Beach Club? This is insane. And by the way, kudos to that reporter, because that's actually what journalism looks like. So again, this was all well before Sheldon Whitehouse introduced a bill to study reparations for slavery. I don't know, just an idea here. Shouldn't Sheldon Whitehouse maybe stop attending an all-white beach club before telling other Americans that they're culpable for slavery and they have to pay reparations? You know, maybe walk the talk. Hold yourself accountable, do the work, as the critical race theory hustlers in the Democrat Party like to say. No, you have it all wrong. Because see, Democrats don't actually care about racial unity. And quite honestly, I don't know how you can claim to care about Black Americans when you're a member of an all-white club in 2021, for the love. The party of slavery uses Black people to gain and maintain power. They peddle their false religion of wokism to anger people of color while promising to solve all of their problems with more government. But see, everywhere you find Black poverty, you find Democrat Pharisees running things, always stoking racial animosity, selling dependency on their power of government. And meanwhile, they show off their wokism to an adoring media like this. See, here's what Jesus said about the Pharisees of his day. He said, quote, "For they preach, but they do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move with them. move them with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, and they love the place of honor at feasts and the best seats in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplaces and being called teacher by others, end quote. Does that sound familiar? Because it should. That perfectly describes this modern day Pharisees' attitude that is beholden by the Marxist core Democrat Party. They love the best seats at the Oscars and the Davos conferences. They love to be seen as saying all of the right things, acting like these high priests of wokism. And they place racial burdens on others that they themselves don't carry. And they've discovered that race can be weaponized via wokism to radically transform America. They only use this false religion to gain power over you, and then they try to emotionally browbeat people and mentally enslave people and damn people of color to poverty by telling them that they're not capable, that they can't increase their status in this country without the hand of the government. Meanwhile, these Pharisees live out their best lives far away from Black Americans. And they claim to care, the same people they came to care about, just like Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse. Now, I don't think the White Houses of the world intend on changing how they live, but they do intend on changing how you live. See, they intend to create a segregated, hyper-racialized society in which various ethnicities are pitted against each other. Meanwhile, Democrat Pharisees like Sheldon Whitehouse mingle at his all-white beach club. If we buy their tale of false religion, this is on us. This party only sells hypocrisy and racial hatred. And a sidebar here, it's so insane to me that anyone would ever take this party seriously whenever they talk about unity or whenever they talk about racial harmony in America. This is a party that has always denied being on the wrong side of history. It was Democrats, by the way, it was Democrats' Civil Rights Act of 1964. They set a record, 83-day filibuster record against the Civil Rights Act. And in fact, also women's suffrage, 19th Amendment for women's suffrage. Democrats opposed women's suffrage as well. But yet this is the party they always deny where they stood historically. And this is a party also that always likes to say that it's the Republicans that stood on the wrong side of history. Republicans never held any of these positions. It wasn't Republicans that sent American Indians on the trail of genocide. It was Democrats. It wasn't Republicans that opposed women's suffrage. It was Democrats by and large. It wasn't Republicans that opposed the Civil Rights Act. It was Democrats which led that 83-day record filibuster, which, by the way, they love the filibuster when they're themselves the minority party. No, it was always has been Democrats. It was Democrats that opposed giving free Black Americans their natural right of being able to vote, being citizens. And in fact, it was a Democrat judge, Roger Taney, who was appointed by a Democrat president, Andrew Jackson, who determined that Dred Scott couldn't be an American citizen fully recognized because, heaven forbid, by doing that, Taney would be claiming that free Black men and women in the country would be afforded their natural rights due to them of keeping and bearing arms. And see, white racists did not want free people of color exercising their natural Second Amendment right and defending themselves. Can't have that. They've always been on the wrong side of history, and they're still on the wrong side of history today. And wokism, a false religion. And you know how you can tell? Don't look at what they say. Look at what they do. Or as Jesus so perfectly said, you will know them by their fruit. Coming up, former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova joins us because going on with the wokism and the division, January 6th is a hot topic of conversation still, but yet there's a huge mystery around it. Who killed Ashli Babbitt? I mean, when you hear all of these stories of officer-involved shootings, why is it that we know everything in those instances? But here in the Capitol, we don't know anything about this officer involved or really anything about Babbitt's shooting. Joe DeGenova joins next to discuss. Keep it here. Black Rifle Coffee Company is a veteran-owned coffee company serving premium coffee to people who love America. Veteran CEO and founder Evan Hafer spent over 7 years on the ground overseas with U.S. Special Forces and as a CIA contractor. Black Rifle Coffee is committed to Evan's mission of supporting veteran, law enforcement, and first responder causes. This summer, Black Rifle Coffee Company invites you to enjoy your coffee. Whether you're brewing the perfect cup, a pour over, or cracking open a can of 300, which totally got me through my day, on your next backcountry mission, Black Rifle Coffee is here to fuel your way wherever the summer takes you. So head on over to blackriflecoffee.com/DanaTV to order yours. Use code DanaTV at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Fuel your summer with America's coffee. Black Rifle Coffee. Former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova joins us now to discuss the latest facts surrounding January 6th. It's often so brought up as a talking point on the left, but what they omit is any discussion about Ashli Babbitt. This is the military veteran who was killed in the Capitol building during the Capitol riot. Now, why was she shot? Who shot her? A lot of questions that are being asked, and sadly by her family as well. They don't know anything. Mr. DeGenova joins us now. Joe, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I've never seen any instance where we know so little information, and where, you know, we've been in this for the past, I guess now 15 months, going on 18 months. Whenever you see an officer involved shooting, and it doesn't matter, in the criminal involved, it doesn't matter how in the wrong they are, you know immediately everything about that officer. We knew everything about Derek Chauvin within hours. We've known everything about every single officer, regardless of the person involved. But this, Joe, this is such a unique case because we don't know anything about who was involved in the shooting of Ashli Babbitt. And of course, this was the military veteran, the woman who was pictured. This was in the interior of the Capitol building, I guess, going into the double doors leading into the chamber. And there was one shot. And it just stuns me that we don't know anything about this still. How unusual is this, Joe?
It is very unusual, and it is unacceptable as well. As you know, Dana, I was the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. I had jurisdiction over the Capitol and the Capitol Police. I had many, many cases involving Capitol Police officers, demonstrations at the Capitol, crimes committed at the Capitol, everything you can name. We always had the full cooperation of the Capitol Police, and what's going on now is a complete cover-up. This is an outrageous abuse of political power and legal power by the Democratic heads of the House and the Senate. They could release, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi could release every bit of footage and every bit of tape that's available. They are stopping the Capitol Police from cooperating. The Capitol Police, of course, don't want to cooperate under the current leadership. We should know the name of that officer. There is absolutely no reason in the world that cannot be made public. And also, I disagree completely with the judgment that's been made by the prosecutors at the Justice Department and the U.S. Attorney's Office that this was a justifiable homicide. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever on the record that this has been investigated properly. And so I think it needs to be investigated further. The family is certainly entitled to know who the officer is, and they are entitled to know the full facts surrounding her death. It is an outrageous. Anyone who's seen the footage, who's been in law enforcement, knows that there are severe questions surrounding that shooting that have not been answered to the satisfaction of anybody who knows anything about law enforcement.
Yeah, completely. And we're seeing some of that footage there now. And these individuals, from everything that we know, broke away from the peaceful protest. And, the individuals who were breaking the windows and doing the damage, I mean, obviously, fine, charge them within the law, arrest them, and those arrests have been taking place. But the thing, Joe, that struck me as very odd because I've seen so far, I think there's 3, at least publicly available. There's 3 different perspectives in terms of video footage of what exactly happened in that hallway with Ashli Babbitt when she was up peering in the window. And it looked as though in one of the footage there was an entire SWAT team that was behind her, and they just seemed more focused on managing the people in the hallway, and there wasn't a huge crowd in the hallway. And I guess my question is, at what point does the justification for lethal force come into play when it's at or inside the Capitol? And does that in the presence maybe perhaps somewhere in the building of lawmakers, do those variables change how that scenario legally would play out outside of the Capitol?
Well, no, it actually doesn't, because the use of deadly force is an individual decision that has to be justified by the facts of the moment. This was an unarmed civilian coming in, perhaps illegally, into an area. However, when you view the entire footage and the short period of time involved and see that there was no warning that deadly force could be used, the firing of the shot, the arm extended, an immediate shot, one shot, the death of Ashli. When you view the entire scene, it is quite obvious that the number of unanswered questions is astronomical. I have conducted grand juries involving the use of deadly force by police officers, in which police officers were exonerated and in which police officers were charged. This particular case involves a use of deadly force under circumstances which raise an incredible number of questions about the justification for that deadly force. I'm not satisfied with the decision was made. Perhaps I would be if all of the information surrounding the shooting were released. Also, all of the footage that's available and all of the materials that were used to investigate it. The statement that was given by the Justice Department was a very weak statement. It did not go into any detail, and it is quite clear that any professional looking at this case would not have been happy with the statement issued by the Justice Department. There are just too many unanswered questions, and the family deserves answers, and they need to get them. I'm delighted that they're suing. Obviously, the Congress is going to fight like the Dickens not to release information. I hope they get a good judge who works with them and helps them get the information that they deserve. This is disgraceful. The blackout on this to the public and to the law enforcement community. I've spoken with FBI agents and law enforcement people who've told me under no circumstances do they believe that the use of deadly force in these circumstances was justified. From what they've seen, maybe they would change their mind if they saw all of the evidence, but we are being denied that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a very good point too, to make that not even all the footage has been released, and additionally, just the presence of all of the SWAT officers in the background managing the entire scenario. You would think that I don't know what the people inside on the other side of the door saw, which then raises, I know there's been some speculation, Joe, online where people were saying, well, maybe it was someone's security detail as opposed to a Capitol Police officer, and maybe that's why they were trying to hide the identity of the individual involved. Do you give any credence to that kind of speculation? Do you think that is that kind of a reasonable, without information, people are just left to guess?
Well, I think we do know from public statements by the government that it was a Capitol Police officer of some standing in terms of length of service, someone who's been there for a number of years. So I don't think it may have been a Capitol Police officer who was assigned to someone's security detail, but they wouldn't be just a security officer. They would be a Capitol Police officer. So we just are being denied access to that. And it leads to rank speculation, which is unhealthy in a situation like this. The way you deal with something like this is you answer the questions when you're a public official. There's nothing secret about this. Someone died. We know it was done by a Capitol Police officer. They say they're worried about the safety of that police officer, which is why they're hiding his name. That is not a justification. There are ways to protect that officer.
Nobody's ever been concerned. They've never been concerned about police officers before. Whenever they've broadcast their name, whenever you have cable news networks like MSNBC or CNN, I love how that's an excuse now, Joe.
Well, the blue line, the thin blue line, all of a sudden has become very important in this particular cover-up. And remember, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi could order all of this information be made public with a snap of their fingers, and they are refusing to do it. So make no mistake about it. This is not a close question. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are hiding all of the information about the death of Ashli Babbitt. Nobody else.
Yeah, no public inquest. It does sort of, it spurs the discussion that maybe government agents are held to a completely different set of standards. And this was something that comes to mind whenever we would hear AG Merrick Garland come out. He had said and the Biden administration, that white supremacy was the greatest security threat. And when you think about, and they always say this in conjunction with January 6th, as though, well, look, this is some evidence of it somehow. But they never name who are these so-called supremacists, and why can't names be named? Why there's no transparency?
Well, the reason all of the thousands of hours of tape footage from the January 6th riot are being suppressed is that they will clearly show that this was not an insurrection. It was clearly illegal activity by some people. It's also true that almost the entire group of demonstrators, with the exception of a limited few who came into the Capitol, were peaceful and ruly. They were not unruly and unpeaceful. The reason that Schumer and Pelosi are hiding all of the tapes is that they don't want people to see the full story. So there's your answer. Transparency is the watchword of the Democrats. They use it like they use every word in the English language. Transparency. Well, where is it here? It's A1. And the reason they don't want it out is that the story is a story they don't want told. And I go back as a former United States attorney to the issue of this officer. We as citizens have a right to know who this officer is. What was his record? Had he had any incidents in the past? Should he have had a weapon? Had he been trained? Had he had training in dangerous situations? When was the last time he'd been to the firing range? When did he have training in a situation? Had there been any training for this specific event that he was part of? Was he told not to use his weapon? Who authorized them to use the weapon under these circumstances? Was there a supervisor nearby during this incident? If they're in the Capitol and they're protecting members, there were lots of supervisory personnel present. So the number of questions that goes unanswered is legion.
Yeah, this is such an insane story, and it seems so odd that here it's 2021. You'd think that we'd have more freedom, not less freedom at this point, and we'd have more government transparency, not less.
Yes.
We appreciate you staying on it. Joe DeGenova, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to be watching this to see how it unfolds and if answers are ever given. We appreciate you. Thank you.
You bet.
Next up, I'm sure that you've heard the case of Eddie Gallagher, and also in the context of military wokism. We're going to talk about what role that played in this story. Eddie and his wife, Gallagher, they have an amazing story. Their long journey to freedom. We're very curious about what Deep State had in mind for his career and everything else. They've got a new book. There's a lot to discuss. Stick around. You've likely heard about Eddie and Andrea Gallagher. They have a new book coming out June 29th that tells about their fight for freedom. This is a crazy story. The book is called The Man in the Arena, From Fighting ISIS to Fighting for My Freedom. It's an intense story. And I've spoken with Eddie on my radio show prior, but I also wanted to have Andrea on with Eddie because his wife really was a shield maiden in leading the fight to exonerate him and clear his name. And they both join us now. Thank you guys so much and congratulations on the book. It's good to see you. Just to get right into it, and tell me, you just stop me if you think that I have this, I'm giving you my perspective, a 30-second a pitch to everybody out there of what exactly happened with this story. So we've been talking, for the past several months about wokery in the military, wokism, and this idea that we need to have a super kittens and sunshine, friendly, happy, let's be nice to everybody military because that's what's going to keep America safe. And ultimately, that's really what played into this story here. Eddie Gallagher, Andrea, your husband, Eddie, serving overseas, the battle for Mosul, and you had some, greenhorns, for the lack of a better way to put it, who just, were used to more, everybody gets a trophy, a participation trophy, just for showing up. They didn't really like, your hard as nails, tough approach to getting the job done, so they try to frame you for something that you didn't do, and even in the courtroom, someone was admitting there under oath that they actually were guilty of what you were being accused of. Does that sum it up?
Pretty much, yeah. That's a quick summation of, for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Well, like I said, it's good to see you both. Eddie, this book, so when I first heard of your all's story, we have a mutual friend, Melanie Luttrell, and Melanie was posting, there was a picture of her and Leslie Luttrell, and then I saw Andrea and all of these really amazing women who are also wives of veterans in active duty standing in a line out in the woods somewhere, and they were there to TCB. They were there to really get it going. And I'm thinking, what in the world is happening? This is serious. I need to figure out what's going on here. And then that's when I learned this was shortly after, Eddie, you were arrested because someone was accusing you of killing an ISIS combatant after the ISIS combatant was trying to kill you and those under your command. And so you were arrested while getting medical treatment and thrown into the brig, and you were there for several months. And Andrea led the charge to let everyone in the country know, no, this is not what happened. We're going to clear it up. Talk to me a little bit about just your first impressions and your first thoughts when all of this happened, because you served your country for so long, so admirably. To be repaid in such a fashion by your government seems to be an insult of the highest order.
Yep. So when all this was first going on, and then when they arrested me and threw me in prison when I was at the TBI clinic, obviously we were blown away that could even happen, that they could just lock me up with no charges, no evidence, just purely on hearsay. But the sad part is, once that process starts happening, you really have no voice. Like, I had no chance to fight back or tell my side of the story. So thank God that, my Andrea here stood up and started an organic grassroots campaign through social media and other avenues, getting the truth out about what was really going on, how my rights were being violated, pretty much everything the Navy was trying to, sweep under the rug and just, put me away, use me as an example, hang me out to dry, and then put me away for the rest of my life. But little do they know that they were facing Eddie Gallagher, and that's, as the world saw, she's a force to be reckoned with. I knew she was, being married to her, but that's the blessing of it all, that the world got to see what a fierce woman she is. And also, all the other wives, just like you had said, that she was taking pictures with. I mean, this fight wasn't just about me. This was more, they were demonizing what we've been doing the past 20 years, which is fighting for this country and trying to defeat evil. And that, when they demonize us, they demonize our spouses, because they're the ones fighting as well. They're staying at home, keeping the home front steady, and just taking care of the kids. So, I mean, their service is just as much as ours. So I really think, it not only was she obviously trying to get her husband out of prison and get the truth out there, but she was also a voice for the rest of, the spouses and also the military members, to say, you can't treat, warfighters like this. They deserve due process, and you can't demonize them like this either. These, these guys, and that's how I feel. These guys that have been doing this job the past 20 years, guys that I look up to, when they came after me, they came after everybody, in our eyes.
Yeah. And throughout all of this, I heard from so many people, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and there were so many who were serving and had served that were not allowed to speak out in your favor, because you had some newbies that decided they were going to try to take out their frustration on you, and ultimately that's what ended up happening. And it went to the point to where, I mean, you were actually terrorized. Your family was terrorized by the United States government because of this. And I read how there was a SWAT team that raided your home. Andrea, you were out working. You're a working mother. You were involved in, you were doing work. You were helping take care of the family. And tell me what happened with this, because I don't think a lot of people realize this until you started talking about it online.
Yeah, ironically, Dana, that was actually 2 years ago, almost to the day. So we've definitely been thinking about that a lot. We wrote extensively about the home raid in our book. All of our children have chapters because we were all in different spheres. So Eddie was basically taken and locked away and trapped in a room. I was out, as you said, at work meetings, and then my sons were at home. And so they basically staged what you can only describe as laying siege to our home where we had lived for 11 years. And they took our boys out at gunpoint. They dragged them into the street in their underwear. And that's what began a 7-hour raid on our home. And that's when we knew that we were up against the full weight of the government. And there was basically nothing they would stop at to terrorize our family. So we do talk about that extensively to give the context about how violating that was for us as a military family.
Yeah, very much so. And the book, Man in the Arena, EddieGallagherBook.com, this was described as mutiny, not murder. Eddie, by your attorney, which I thought was a fantastic way to put it. And for people that maybe, because I was reading, courtroom testimony, and I was also looking at some of the statements that, some of the video and audio statements that you all had posted to Instagram and other parts of social media. But I mean, what gets me is not only were you, physically terrorized, but you also, for instance, I was reading one piece where it said, the lead prosecutor, Navy commander, was apparently reading your all's emails, was able to actually look at private conversations you all were having. It was said that they were looking to see who you were all communicating with. This Navy commander was removed from the case along with 2 other lawyers and remains under investigation for his unprofessional conduct. But all of this happened. There are charges against you that you somehow killed this ISIS combatant after he was brought back to where y'all were for medical treatment, which, the United States is the only country in the world that would do something like this. Obviously, because of his injuries, he's not going to make it. They're accusing you of killing the guy. You clearly didn't. Their case is falling apart. And then you find out that the prosecutor in the case is actually violating his own professional code, the code of ethics, perhaps the law itself, in trying to really work overtime and framing you for this. Eddie, tell me about that.
Yeah, so basically it's a common theme along with my case that, anybody that got involved that tried to come after me or take these guys that, had these false accusations in my platoon, take their side, were forced to lie themselves, because you can't win a case that's based on lies from the get-go. So in order to win this case, they themselves had to lie as long with other people from my command that got behind these guys. They had to make a choice at some point, either back off and, let this play out and see what happens, or they can go ahead and go forward and continue to persecute me, which is a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of people made that call. It was like, you know what, we're going to let our ego drive us here. We refuse to say that we made a mistake. So we're going to go all in, and we're going to get a win. In order for them to do that, they had to lie, cheat, and steal. And it was really disgusting to watch or to be a part of. But unfortunately, that is what happened. But when you lie, cheat, and steal, in the end, you lose. We say we won because we had 2 things on our side the whole time. That was God and the truth. And we never changed our story once. No. We held our heads high. As scary as it was, we walked into the trial like, here we go, let's go. And we were confident because we had the truth on our side. Unfortunately, the prosecutors, they had to go and do a lot of legal stuff to try and get a win. And they got caught.
It really makes you in this era of where I think people I don't think that they could have less trust in their government institutions. And then your case comes along, and it kind of lays bare just the level of corruption and how far it goes up. I was reading also, and this is all in your book, Man in the Arena, the trial transcript. Thousands of pages, a lot of hours of testimony, but it really came down to one thing and one witness, one testimony. SEAL Corey Scott, the prosecution's star witness, who he had immunity, but he ended up admitting to murder, essentially, is how they characterized it. Tell me about your feeling, Andrew. Let me ask you, because you're here right by your husband's side. I saw you were going to court every day. What was that like, that moment when this guy admits to what they're trying to frame your husband for?
Oh gosh, it was super surreal. It was kind of something that when we played it out during the course of that, people always think it was just this super dramatic moment, and it was, but for us, we knew that the government was going to stop at nothing. So we had no inclination that even that was going to stop the trial, and it proved to be true. They kept going. They kept proceeding. They had leveled a laundry list of accusations and allegations against him. So many things a part of this trial were just unbelievable. And that was one of them. They had specifically zeroed in on the ISIS terrorists, but then through the course of the trial and the accusations, they tried to cobble together all these different things to vilify him and show him as a crazy lunatic. So they came up with 2 fictitious charges, which actually became a really media firestorm, saying he had killed a little girl and a father on Father's Day. And there was no basis in truth. It never happened. These people never existed. But the thing was, they were still trying to go for life without parole, paint him as a villain, and contrive all of these false narratives in order to do so. So we kept marching on after that. We talk about it in the book, and we just say it was a poignant moment. It was a huge break for us because it was someone finally coming forward with the truth. And we at that time had no idea that that was going to happen. And his lawyer was sitting behind me, and he reached over, he gave me a note, and he said, "I'm so sorry you had to wait so long to hear the truth." I could get chills just talking about it. So it was a huge moment for us, but it definitely was not the end. And that's where we go into all the things that played out thereafter in the book, because it really was an onslaught of terror against our family. And it continued even after that.
And that's the shocking thing, because I remember when that was discussed online, that moment, and I joke that I play a lawyer on TV, but I think a lot of other people thought, okay, surely this is going to be the end of it. But as you said, Andrea, it wasn't. And Eddie Gallagher had been, the only conviction that they had was posing for a photo with a deceased ISIS combatant, because we are supposed to kill enemies with kindness. And that they were trying to strip you of your trident, and that's when President Trump stepped in. First off, he wanted you removed from where you were being held to a place where you could continue getting the medical treatment that you had been receiving prior to that, and refused to allow them to strip you of your trident, Eddie. How did the president get involved in this? How did that happen?
Well, you're looking at her right here. She's through her organic grassroots campaign, she got quite the following, and eventually she got on Fox News and a lot of other news channels, getting the story out. And she knew that the president had watched Fox and Friends avidly every morning, so she ended up being able to go on there. And I mean, the president told me when he talked to me, he's like, the reason that he ended up helping me out is because of Andrea, and that she's it's fantastic. I think I don't know if it's verbatim, but he called her a fantastic salesperson.
She was.
I was the product. And, he really took an avid interest, and he got involved 3 different times during my whole thing. The one was to let me out of prison in order to defend myself. He wasn't saying I was guilty or not guilty. He just said, give this man the due process he deserves and let him go to trial. And then the second time is he was when they were going to pull my trident. He had just called me and said, hey, I'm going to let you retire and, move on with your life after the military was trying to take away my retirement. As soon as he made that decision, the Naval Special Warfare then came after me and said, okay, since he's doing that, now we're going to take your trident. And then the other 2 times were also the Navy tried to award the prosecutors after the trial. They gave them all Navy Achievement Medals for, still don't know what the awards are for. They took me to trial, lost, got caught cheating, but the Navy deemed it that they, deserved awards. The president then rescinded those awards and also, called up and said you will not be taking his trident. I really think it was very embarrassing there at the end. It was very petty. It was between my command, the Navy, and the president, and I was a football just being thrown back and forth as to see who had the biggest balls, I guess, and who it was pretty ridiculous.
And what amazes me about this whole thing, especially the photo thing, is there's a photo that's online. It shows the whole dang squad there with a deceased ISIS combatant, including the couple of individuals that started this whole mess by snitching on you, by trying to tell the teacher on you with all of this. And I mean, I can't treat it any more serious than their pettiness allows. But no one else was in trouble for this. No one else. Final question, and I want to give this one to Andrea. How does it make you feel knowing that people in this country, including those who were really trying to railroad your husband, they sleep soundly at night because of the work that he and other men and women who wear the uniform and go and serve courageously overseas. How does it make you feel knowing that these people sleep soundly at night because of the work that they try to demonize your husband for?
Yeah, well, we're living in a very, difficult time is the only way that I can put it. And I feel like what we're hoping is that we want people to see through and behind the curtain of what's going on. He's been fighting every major war since we started the war on terror. So it's very hard, I think, for people to put themselves in a situation of a 2 decades long war fighter, the terrors and the atrocities and the things that he's seen, and he's deployed back to back to back to back. Our family served and sacrificed. I think there is a time for people to really look and examine and say, you are afforded these rights and all of these privileges that we have in our country because of people like him. So vilifying our service members and also taking, people's constitutional rights away, which they did with my husband. They threw him in jail for 9.5 months before President Trump finally was able to move the mark on releasing him so that he could be afforded his rights of due process and assist and aid in his own trial. These things should not be happening in our country. So I do hope that through our story, as tragic and tumultuous as it is, we feel that God will use our story to really hopefully ignite people to say, these things have to change, and we all have to be a part of that change to get the respect our service members deserve and make sure that this never happens to another family again. That's our biggest goal with the book.
Absolutely. And that book is Man in the Arena, From Fighting ISIS to Fighting for My Freedom. And you can go to eddiegallagherbook.com. Pre-order it now, because I think with all of the discussion about foreign policy and wokism and really the problems within the United States that are trying to divide the country further, this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that I think everybody needs to read and be aware of. Eddie and Andrea Gallagher, it's so good to see you. God bless y'all. Eddie, thank you so much for your service. I know that I speak for millions of people out there. And Andrea, yours as well, and your families, and for really letting everybody know what was happening and doing what you do. Thank you both. God bless.
Thanks, Dana.
All right, folks, the war on all things normal continues because it's another day that ends in Y. Keep it here. All right, folks, that does it for us tonight. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @dlash, and you can visit danalash.com. Subscribe to my newsletter at Substack, and happy birthday to my husband, Chris. Good night, and don't bend the knee.